Why does your life keep bringing you suffering?
And what you allow to come in your mind controls your fucking heart. A man's word right now doesn't mean shit. Imagine if you just have that in your life. You have the truth and you have honor. That everything that comes out of your fucking mouth, you do it. That you do the shit that you said you're gonna do.
Hello, welcome back to the Warrior Week podcast. I am your host, Coach Max. This is our coach, Coach Sam. How you doing today, Coach?
Hey, how are you, man?
Very good. And that intro fires me up every time because specifically when it talks about man and a man's word and their honor, which kind of correlates to today's topic in regards to life is suffering. And men consistently have this frame around life is fucking suffering and this pain of their suffering. And they don't really know how to get out of it. They try to get out of it, yet they continuously put themselves further down that rabbit hole. And really my question today is, why is it that we're okay with life being suffering? Or why don't we truly want to harness or move through the suffering or give grace, to God in regards to the suffering? Like, it's just so much. And it's like painful.
Yeah. I think valid point. We sadly, the definition of suffering is, it is defined subjectively depending on, a situation you're in. I mean, the simplest way of looking at suffering is the following example. I come see you and you say, "Hey, man, I have pain." And I'm like, okay, what is your pain? He goes, you tell me your hand is burning. And I'm like, okay, where is your hand? My hand is on a stool. And I'm saying, okay, bro, so just lift it up. And I don't want to. You don't want to. No, you don't want to move your hand from the hot stool, but yet you're telling me that you're suffering and you're burning. Yes. So why am I talking to you? I don't know. The definition of suffering becomes something that we have to distinguish. My point is simply by this example is that we have to distinguish it between pain.
The distinguish of where is the pain or the cause of the pain, the root.
Everything about the pain has nothing to do with the suffering. So everybody has pain. You have pain. I have pain. We all have pain, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, whether it's the situation that we're in right now or a situation that we're coming out or a situation that perhaps we're going to walking into. Pain is going to be present. Holding on to this pain for an interpretation is equal to suffering. Now, what is that interpretation? Often that could be a story, right? I'm holding on to this pain because it serves me in this way. It serves me in this way. It's a story. The relationship I'm currently in is extremely painful, but I'm holding on to it because I want to keep, I don't want my children to grow in a divorced family. It's a story. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It is what it is, but it's a story that tells you it's okay to be in pain. And sometimes we do need to endure pain. And sometimes we do need to accept pain. And sometimes we do need to have joy in pain. But to say I'm suffering is now denying completely the power of joy.
Yeah. You're constantly reminding me of this ability to remove yourself from the story, right? Or remove yourself from the suffering, because if you're carrying it, it's also giving you the ability to go ahead and almost cop out and move away from it and not actually own, oh, fuck, I am in pain. Okay, what is it that's fucking hot? The stool is hot, or the stove is hot, or whatever the fuck my hand is on. So, okay, now I need some tools to get my hand off this fucking stove.
Yeah.
And now in this investigation of tools, where do I truly find, besides Warrior Week, and I don't really know anything else outside of Warrior Week, really, to get my fucking hand off the stove.
It's a very good point that you bring in, right? Because to you and I or somebody else, it may be very obvious. Just lift your hand, right? And that depends on the mental state that a person may be in. But a person that keeps insisting of putting his hand on the stove, it's not necessarily that that person is weak, or it's not necessarily that the person is unwilling, but it's also unknowing, right? Maybe the simplicity of simply lifting your hand, that custom does not exist. It does. Like that possibility, it's erased in person's mind. If I put my hand on the stove right now, I'll remove it immediately. But if I kept my hand there for years, think about my like that idea of removing it immediately goes away now.
It's all I know. All I know is to keep my hand on the stove. And for you to tell me to remove it, it's like, okay, that sounds like a great idea, but how the fuck? I don't even know my hand's there.
Well, think about this, right? It's more painful for me to not have the story that my hand is burning, so that I get all this interaction with others, versus that immediately removing my hand. Yes, I don't feel the pain on my hand, but then I don't have any story. So that I don't have any audience.
Damn. Well, and when I remove my hand, that causes me to actually make a movement.
Correct.
Now I have to fucking do something about it.
What else do I put my hand after?
Yeah. So does the pain of a man just keep his ability not to move, and it keeps him in a point of, because I know it does for me when I'm like, oh, okay, hey, I hurt something, or oh fuck, I'm emotionally distraught about something. I can go into this tunnel or pit of, oh fuck, I'm gonna just sit here. This is a comfortable place to sit. Or if I'm like, no, I'm gonna get the fuck up and now I'm gonna move, it requires me to create action. And inside that's a problem in itself, because action seems like suffering.
Or 100%. Or the idea of the anxiety about what action. Think about this idea of having like 10 choices in front of you, and the anxiety of choosing the right choice and getting stuck inside of that. For some people, that's more painful than simply accepting that, okay, my fucking hand is burning on the stove. If I remove my hand, I have to deal with the anxiety of the choices, and that's more painful. So the perception of pain, and the translation of that pain to what could be serving us, that's suffering. That's suffering. And you and I both know that ultimately nobody should suffer.
Nobody should suffer. Absolutely.
Nobody should suffer. That doesn't mean anybody have pain.
Yeah.
But nobody should suffer.
I feel like too, that mindset comes from this ability. And I mean, we all have gone through pain. We've all gone through suffering. But something that I feel like we're cut from a different cloth, or the training we've done and the work we've done, is that we also are okay with knowing that suffering sometimes brings comfort.
Correct.
Suffering, there's like light at the end of the tunnel. I hate that fucking embrace the suck. I rather enjoy it, right? Like I truly know that if I'm going through some suffering, I'm in that trial and tribulation.
Yeah.
I'm in the pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And that fear or anxiety is telling me, hey, you need to fucking move forward, or you need to move backwards. But staying here is a fucking problem.
Yeah.
Staying here is a fucking problem. And I'm someone that naturally that came to me. Where does seeing all these men come through the program, seeing all these men, like, where does it become an issue where now I'm a man who is embracing or okay with fucking suffering? I know that the suffering is a fucking tool for me to move forward.
I think it's it's a state of being alone, and in that state, I'm declaring that it's okay for me to suffer. And I can pretend not to be alone, but I am truly 100%, without a doubt, alone in my operating ways. Maybe not alone socially, but in the way I operate in my mind, I only hear one fucking voice, and that's my own voice that says, suffer in this loneliness.
Man, you just brought a man to me that came through I always think about came through the halls, right? Came through the program, and he was suffering of a relationship with his wife. His wife would go out drinking. His wife would hang out at night, and then he would also go out to strip clubs. And then he came in here and he rectified all that and knew that that's not the way to go. That's not the right way to do. And then he isolated himself back out to allow himself to go back to strip clubs and live that life because it was an easier way of suffering, I guess. And instead of, hey, owning the possibility of moving forward
or the anxiety of dealing with the choices, because certainly one of those choices would have been extreme when it comes to with his wife, and there would be consequences for that, and the consequences that he would imagine as being painful. And the creative imagination of that pain was more than accepting the current condition, and therefore we stay. So you talked about certain tools, like what are some of the tools that could allow us to come out of this? Number one is a perspective that comes from another person. What you may consider suffering, another person may consider absolutely a story of being trapped, or another person may actually say that there's honor in this period of suffering, and that is it's not called suffering, but it's called endurance. And that at one point you're enduring this because you're obedient to the knowledge of why this is happening. And most of the time, when we don't know, we're looking for the immediate reason why this is happening to us. But there's the sovereign plan of God, and there is the master plan. And inside of that master plan, on chapter 6, page 9, it's written that this is happening at this time to you and I, right? And if I don't trust that master plan, I am going to be forever looking for a why somewhere else.
I love when someone goes through like a trial and they're like, did you see what God just did to me? Instead of saying, hey, did you see what God just got me through?
Yeah.
It's a really difficult concept to think that God got me through the suffering instead of God gave me the suffering. Like I see that with men and the ability to give that tool, and almost that simple tool of just saying, hey, okay, this has been written, so let it be. And now I'm going to work through it, and God's going to guide me through it.
Yeah, 100%. There's a story of a man coming to his pastor, and this is an athlete, right? Football player, soccer, whatever you want, like whatever athlete that you prefer. Just plug that athlete into the story. And so, it's been like a couple of months. He hasn't seen his pastor. He goes back to see his pastor. And when he goes back to see his pastor, he's missing a leg, from knee down. And the pastor is like, hey, what's going on? What happened? He goes, I had an incident, and it caused me to cut my knee. And this is what it is. I can't play sports anymore. He goes, man, that's so sad. That let's just let's sit down and let's pray for you. That I'm so sorry that happens. And the guy turns around and says, you know what? Don't worry about it. It's good. Because my Father in heaven knows what he's doing. So and it demonstrates the subscription to the belief and to the faith of the master plan of God. And for all of us, that has to be reminded, because when things are not that bad, we're kind of okay with that. But when things are extremely bad, as humans, naturally, we want to reject that because of the current state of pain. And we just have to be reminded that endurance is what is going to take us to through this. The endurance of knowing that your Father in heaven knows what he's doing.
That's a great reminder for all of us, because it's easy for us to lose that focus. Or somewhere when we were younger, we got some pain in regards to religion, and now we don't believe in the master plan, or we don't want to go and investigate the master plan, right? Because that's something we have to do on our own.
Correct.
And yet it's well, you know what, I'm just going to go to science, or I'm just going to go to this, I'm going to go to that, but I'm not going to truly investigate. Oh, what's it mean to have a fucking master plan? What's it mean to be here and move forward with this life?
Right. So And that's the trend today because of exactly what you said. It's painful to visit the master plan because inside of the master plan, you're going to find some things that you don't want to do. You're going to find some things that you don't want to stop. You're going to see the plan and you're going to disagree with the with the rules and the regulation or the requirement of the plan. And because you disagree, the easy choice is to say, number one, I don't believe in the master plan, or number two, well, the master's plan is written as kind of some passive master plan, but I'm going to write my own annex to it. I'm going to write my own amendment to it.
I got an amendment for this one
because God has given me free will to do that. And that's the dialogue today that you hear everywhere, that I'm going to do whatever I want because God has given me the free will to do whatever I want. Well, God has given you the free will to walk away from him. But once you walk towards him, you're going to walk according to the master plan, or else you're not walking towards him.
Yeah, and as we start walking towards and finding a master plan, I can see the revelations, right? You start realizing, okay, fuck, I can't do this. I need to do this. I need to live more as a servant leader, like we were talking about recently. I have to be able to love others, and I also have to understand what it means to have a fellowship, to have things in my stewardship. Right. And that in itself brings a lot of pain and suffering, because I think about all of us men having our families and having our businesses, and what's that mean in our stewardship and the suffering that we have with that. And yet that's a hard burden to carry sometimes, and that anxiety that comes from that.
It is. And the first degree of fellowship has to happen with God and our Father in heaven. And in order to have fellowship with him, well, you can't have a fellowship with a concept. So as long as God remains a concept in a man's life, then he's missing the first degree of fellowship that defines the remaining protocol for all other fellowship with others. And that's where the problem begins. That's where association and groups begin, and there's no center into those groups and association, and that's why it only lasts temporary. They're not gathered around him; they're gathered around themselves, and therefore, this is what has become popular today in our society, all because of the rejection of the rules and regulation and the requirement in God's master plan.
Give a little more clarity on this idea of removing God as a concept in order to have a better relationship, because this fucks up a lot of men when they have to physically remove their mind from the idea of a concept and have an actual physical relationship with a being.
Yes,
that's a tough fucking concept.
It is, and that's why, if to your point, if the master plan is not investigated by a person, then they will never discover that father and son relationship. Now, I can sit here and can tell you where it is and where you can go, and that's fine, but that's me inserting myself between you and that relationship. Right now, if you're sitting and you have a relationship as a concept with God, I can come in there and I can tell you, hey, go there and go here, but you shouldn't be listening to me.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be listening to me. You should, so if you're curious about having a relationship as a father and son that you currently don't have with God, and you see him as a concept, then I encourage you to investigate. I did. And I can tell you where to go and why to find it. And so many other people would tell, but you don't believe it. You're not going to hear it right now. I can tell you exactly where it is, and I can tell you you can go there and spend time, but you're going to reject the answer as these words are coming out of my fucking lips anyway. So, and it's not my position to tell you what to do or not to do, but I can encourage you and say you can investigate this relationship inside of the history of humanity, history of God, history of one God, and history of Christianity. And so there it is, right? There it is. And that begins the dilemma. That begins the dilemma of my religion, your religion. This is not about solving the world religions problem. This is, you asked the fucking question, and I'm telling you, there is only one way to God, and that is through Christ. Now, you can get mad at me and say, this motherfucker is hey man, what about all these other religions? What about all the like? Hey, I didn't say it. God said it. I just believe in what he said. So if you're going to get mad at somebody, you're going to get mad at Christ. And Christ said that, and God said that in the word, in his book. So that's the stand. That's a harsh stand, right? And I'm not forcing that stand on anybody's throat. I wish for it. I desire that. But dude, you're not going to get that if you do not fucking investigate. My point is, don't swallow the fucking red pill. Investigate what the red pill is made about, and then you will see that it's not even a pill at that point.
Well, I brought up that point. I brought up that question because it almost goes back and it correlates to the idea of that pain and that suffering. Because again, if the concept is going to get greater, right? And we're going to find ourselves investigating God and going in that direction.
Sure.
But if you can't even get past the fucking stove, I got excited there. I'm going to have to edit that out. So if you can't even get past the concept of the fucking stove,
correct?
How the fuck do you even get to the investigation of God and my relationship with father and son? Like I don't even get there.
Bingo.
I don't even get fucking
bingo. There. And that is the essence of this conversation is let's not even talk about that. Let's talk about the fucking stove, because to your point, to the person that is stuck at the stove level, doesn't want to remove his hand from the stove, he's not hearing anything else. He's not believing in the concept that, God is there to help you. All he hears is my hand on the fucking stove, it's fucking burning, and I don't want to take it off.
Yeah, my relationship's on fucking fire. Me and my wife aren't getting along, or fuck, man, I have no control of my body, or you know what, my business is being ran into the ground. I'm at this point where everything's fucking on fire. How the fuck do I fix this? You know what? I'm just gonna leave this here. I'm fucking cool with this.
And I don't want to
address that.
I don't want to hear anything else. Neither that I can at that point. So very good point. The first step of the investigation is, hey, how do we help you not suffer? Don't worry about God, man. How do we help you not suffer? How do we help you unfuck yourself in your story that, you don't want pain and yet you keep your hand on the stove burning?
The only thing I know is Warrior Week. Mm-hmm. Warrior Week, in the process of Warrior Week, in the lead up to Warrior Week, and then afterwards, training that comes and the development of a man. That's all I fucking know is the work. Doing the work. I know the rules, right? Tell the truth, fucking do the shit. The unspoken rule that I feel like needs to be added is do the shit you said you're going to do.
100%.
That's one that's like the undertone of everything.
And you and I have knowledge of many books and a lot of knowledge, but like the only tactical work that we've seen in the past 9 years is through Warrior Week. And this is the Warrior Week podcast. So I don't know if you tuned into some, hey, let me tell you, in general about God and man. No, we talk about God in the context of suffering, in the context of a man suffering in the story of the past and currently being stuck in the story of now. And why there's this gap and bridge between him and the one that can actually help him through a relationship. And that conversation is a conversation of Warrior Week, because Warrior Week deals with the stove and the hand. And everything else is the beginning of the investigation that you will have personally. But first, we got to deal with the fact that, your incapability, like the unwillingness to remove your hand on the stove, and the stories that you have about, how is that serving you? As long as you keep your hand on the stove and you're able to scream and yell, then you have an audience that you can entertain. But the minute you remove that, the audience goes away, and that seems pretty scary for a lot of men.
Well, and so does the idea of radically changing the way you fucking think today. Imagine that the way you wake up, the way you think about yourself, the way you carry yourself, every fucking thing you do suddenly has to change, and you have to think of a new way, a new concept of learning, a new concept of development, a new concept of being you, but you're still you. Yeah, that's the other problem too, right? Everybody thinks like, I have to change. You're never going to fucking change. You are who you are. Mm-hmm. It requires the work to move you to a place of understanding that, hey, this pain and suffering was a moment in time, but you're just fucking carrying it along. You put it in your backpack and you're on a fucking hike and you're enjoying it. And it's becoming a ruck. And it's a heavier ruck year after year after year, when all you have to do is take the fucking backpack off and decide not to walk on it with it anymore.
That's right. And think about it. the people that love you the most would never want you to change. They may have a request for change of patterns and behaviors, but not you. Think about your children. Do you want your children to ever change? No, you don't want them to change. You want them to be exactly who they are. You love them as they are. You don't want your fucking. It'll be the most horrific thing to have your kids change. Do you want to see patterns of behaviors on them improve and change? Sure. And do you want to see pattern and behavior for yourself to change? Sure. But if somebody loves you more than anybody else, he would fight for the fact that, hey, man, I don't want you to change.
Man, your patterns and behaviors truly actually move you into a place of suffering or a place of fucking of a gift, right? Like, and inside the changing of the pattern and behavior, we find that as suffering. Back to your analogy of taking the hand off. Well, now I got quiet. When I changed my pattern and behavior, it got fucking quiet. I got nobody to complain about, right? Like,
can I deal with that silence?
Yeah. And even when you start, like, you think about somebody just trying to change their body and they stop drinking and they go out at night and they're around other people and immediately they're like, you don't drink? And you're like, no, I don't drink. I'm not drinking right now. Well, why don't you drink? Well, I'm trying to like lose some weight or I'm trying to eat healthier. And it's like, do you have an alcoholic problem? It's like, no, I'm just trying not to fucking drink right now. What the fuck's the problem? And you have to explain yourself and you're like, fuck, it's easier to just have a drink. I'm just going to have a fucking drink.
Yeah. And that happens a lot through the explanation or through the, hey man, fuck it, start tomorrow, or through, hey, you know, like it just is so sad that we quit in that standard of holding on to that decision because of the influences that constantly pull us down.
Man, if we can't even take a stand on alcohol, I'm not drinking for the next 6 weeks. How the fuck do we take a stand on a concept or the ability to say, hey, I no longer have a concept of God. Yeah. I have a relationship. That's going to be a fucked up.
That's my fucking point.
That's a fucked up situation.
That's my point. Like, people want to talk about God all the time. I believe, I don't believe. Oh, I believe that there's many ways to God. I believe there's many religions. And they want to come to the only thing they want to come to is a place of agreement in a disbelief. and yet they don't want to stop drinking for 7 days. We want to take the most complicated concept in today's world because of human behaviors and pattern pushing away towards the master plan. We want to solve that, but we can't. So we compromise and we agree to agree. We agree to agree on an unbelief that the majority of people now shake hands upon. And then we come back and all that was to walk away from dealing with the fact that you can't even fucking stop drinking for 6 or 7 days, or you can't even stop doing X, Y, and Z, the patterns and behaviors that are contributing to your suffering today. But you want to solve the world religion problem because you believe that your problem and all the problem have begun with that conflict. So that if you find a bunch of people that agree with you and now you seem at peace in there and there, now what? You don't even solve the 6 day problem, the 7 day problem. But you're very interested in solving the eternity problem based on some reasonable agreement that makes sense.
So I'm gonna use that as our action item because I don't have an action item right now, and I'm gonna use that for the next 7 days. Find yourself changing your pattern and behavior, which in turn is gonna make you feel like they're suffering. But move away from what the story is and find yourself moving into a better pattern and behavior through the concept of what are you gonna change in the next 7 days.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the best ways to do it, don't fucking eat for 7 days. See what happens. A lot of things would happen, right? A lot of things would happen. Again, I'm going pretty extreme on this, but, like deprive yourself from something that easily you can give yourself permission to do. Then what?
I love that. So deprive yourself of something. Again, this is our Coach Sam. And remember, always go ahead, check us out on warriorweeknow.com if you're looking for old episodes. Also, too, if you're looking for interactions, we had a podcast with a bunch of men going through and what their experience was. Beautiful, beautiful write-ups and also two amazing podcasts for about almost 100 of them. Check it out. And then if you have the inclination, if this resonated with the concept of, okay, hey, how can I change my mindset? What can I do to get me out of where I'm at today, or what will move me, and a fellowship, check us out at warriorweek.com, fill out an application. And then remember, always hashtag warriorweek.com, Warrior Week. And, you know, again, I can't thank the system and the tools enough for what it's done for me. And I've been blessed. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Quit on your wife, quit on your kids, quit on your desires. It's okay to be okay. Manually putting the fucking blindfold on yourself. Tonight, you're gonna find out what power is.